everybody out there. My name is Angie Peacock. I'm a psychiatric drug withdrawal consultant and a healing coach. I like to bring you conversations with people that I find interesting about topics that are present, that are relative to our population of people that are withdrawing from psychiatric drugs, some of which are leaving the system to find other ways to heal. So today I'm bringing you Karla Helbert. She is a licensed professional counselor, internationally certified yoga therapist, compassionate bereavement care provider, award-winning author, and grief activist. Karla's therapy practice has a focus on loss, trauma, grief, and bereavement, working in particular with those affected by trauma and traumatic death. She leads classes, workshops, and retreats for the bereaved, as well as trainings for professionals on how to work with those impacted by traumatic grief and death. Heavy stuff. I mean, I know I want you to share your story of how you came to this work, Karla, but what do you think when you hear all that you do? I mean, it's amazing.
I don't know. My husband says I've got like 100 jobs, but really, like to me, it's all one thing, you know? It all just falls under this umbrella of one thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially, it's just like focus on helping people move through grief and trauma and traumatic grief, you know. So, I mean, like you said, mostly I see people who are dealing with traumatic grief, which is that, like if you picture the Venn diagram, right, and you have that overlay in the middle, you got trauma, you got grief, and then the interconnected space where you're dealing with grief, which is not, well, really, I don't think trauma, post-traumatic stress is not pathological either, but grief is not pathological. But both of those things can be difficult to navigate. And looking at how we manage both of them at once, you know, and so it can be really difficult. But I also do see people who are not actively grieving, but are dealing with trauma. Not as often, just because most people seek me out because of traumatic grief, but it's a difficult thing to like walk through the world with, as you know. So I don't know, like when I hear, that's why before we hopped on the live, I was like, you don't have to read that big long thing.
It's just so long. It's just, yeah. But
Yeah.
but it's really good topic. So can you share with the audience? I already know the story, but can you share with them like how you came to this work and why grief?
Yeah. I've been a therapist for a long time. So I was in, well, when in like 1994, I started working with kids and teenagers with autism and other developmental disabilities, co-occurring with a lot of severe behavioral issues. And also, like, these kids would have like lists of all sorts of diagnoses. And I had never done that kind of work before. So it was like direct care work, which I happened to be, I mean, I didn't know. I was surprised. One of these people that are really good at that kind of work, because it just was a part-time thing for me to try to save extra money to move and do these things. And so I just kept doing that through undergrad. I have an English undergraduate degree. And, you know, I was thinking, how do you can't make a career out of work in direct care, which is really sad because those people are the most important people because they're with the clients all the time and they see everything, you know, and they're the connected. So I thought, well, you know, what am I going to do? Should I be a speech therapist? Do I be an OT, which is awesome. I love OT and speech. But I thought if I do like a mental health track, I could potentially do more with other people. Who knows what's going to happen in my life? And so that's what I did and became a licensed therapist and continued to work in that field. And in 2006, my son died of a brain tumor. And when that happens, it changes your life. So, I mean, and when your child dies, it is always traumatic grief. And often, you know, when you have a child die, there are multiple layers of trauma, depending on what happens. But just the fact of a child dying, and you could be 80 years old and your child is 60 and they died the most peaceful, pain-free death, and it's still going to be traumatic for you as a parent. And so then often we have all these other things, unexpected, violence, suicide, so many things that are layered on. So, you know, my life was upended and your universe shatters and everything you thought was true and solid is not anymore. And so I started taking a lot of grief trainings, not because I was going to be a grief therapist, even though I have a friend who's a therapist who, before he was even dead, said to me, "Oh, you're going to be a grief therapist." And I was just like shocked. I said, "What? I don't even know how to do this myself. I don't even know what you're talking about." But I wanted to learn more and started there. And I also was going to support groups, which were life saving for me. And then, like 2 years in, the woman who was facilitating the groups, like, she knew I was a therapist. And so she asked me to help her facilitate. And I really did not want to do it because I knew if I do that, I will not have my space anymore, which is true. It's what happened. But I also knew I can do this. And it helped me so much that I wanted to give back, you know? So, and I also became, and this was my support groups were with the Myth Foundation, with which I'm really super still involved, really connected with the Myth Foundation and Joanne Cacciatore, who's the founder. We do a lot of things together. But that's really where it all started for me. And when I started facilitating groups, then I started doing some groups at local hospices. And then those people were asking me, "Oh, do you have a private practice?" Which I didn't at the time. I was still working in private schools with kids with autism and teenagers. And when my daughter went to preschool, so she was born 2 years after my son died, then I thought, well, I have some free time. I'll do that. And I started a private practice. And after about not even a year, I had enough clients to quit my other job. But I did not start with like all grief clients and trauma because it's overwhelming. And then interestingly, like as time has gone on, that's all I see. I don't take any new people unless they're traumatically bereaved people or there's a lot of trauma and they kind of fit my orientation, I guess, is that like people find me because of the yoga and the meditation and the energy work. I'm also a Reiki practitioner and I bring all that stuff together. So sometimes people just are like, "I really want to work with you because you do these things." And then, you know, I do that as well. So, but that's how it happened for me. And it's been a long time now. I've been doing this a long time.
I mean, I didn't want to go to this question right away, but I feel like I should ask it now just
Yeah.
because I also deal with lots of suffering just in a different way. But how do you, just as a person who is holding space for people with so much trauma and grief and suffering, how do you process it?
Well, I
It's
don't
hap-
want to say I'm used to it now, but
no, I think,
honestly, like you
yeah,
learn how to be uncomfortable. And because I've been in it, it doesn't feel foreign to me. And I know that's not true for everybody. Um, and weirdly, like I even before all this happened to me, I've never been shy away from like death or grief. I've always felt pretty comfortable in that area. Um, like I was always the person when I was working in schools with kids, if somebody's grandmother died, if somebody's dog died, they would come to me and be like, "What do we do? How do we help? How do we come up with a ritual or whatever?" And I was always like cool with that.
wow.
So, I mean, I mean, even look, I'll say this sometimes and it's just so weird to me, but I took a whole semester long elective course in counseling and death and dying, grief and bereavement. And this was before any of this happened to me.
Yeah.
And interestingly, like in that course, like there was no mention of trauma, no
Wow.
talked about parental bereavement at all. It wasn't a bad course, but they didn't talk about those things. And so, you know, when it happened to me, I was just kind of like blown away. You know, I was not prepared, which nobody ever is. But I think because, and at the time, and I'm really grateful just for my own instinct of knowing I cannot turn away from this. I have to be in it. I have to feel it. I have to go through it. Every time it comes up, I just have to be in it. And that is, I feel the same way with other people. It doesn't scare me,
Yeah.
which I don't know. Some of that might just be my personality, my temperament. I have an awful lot of Scorpio in my chart. Just like
It's funny.
um, you know, I'm not uncomfortable. Not that I'm not sympathetic and empathetic, because I am. I mean, I can see the pain. I mean, I can feel, but I'm okay
With
being in the face of somebody else's incredible pain. Like I know that I can handle that.
amazing.
Um, I do sometimes need some space to just cry and feel for people and have all of the feelings, but in a similar way of how I dealt with my own grief, I
Mm.
deal with that. I just feel it, I let it be, I let it move through me, and I just
Wow.
sort of ground myself and I breathe, and I have, it's not mine to take on.
True.
It's
Oh,
saying,
so
like, we talk about this when I train people. Um, yes, you feel things. It's okay to feel things. It's not wrong to feel things. You should feel things. But also, it's not yours to take. It's like if literally you came to see me and brought a big backpack and you had pictures of all your precious people and mementos and all these things that you wanted to show me and share with me, I wouldn't like take it home with me. It's yours.
such a good
You
point.
wanted me to keep it in my space for a little while and put it in a safe place, I can. But, I'm also really good at compartmentalizing, and that's not a bad thing because I've worked with plenty of people who do not know how to do that and they have a hard time functioning. It's when you learn how to compartmentalize, you don't leave the stuff in the compartments. You have to take it out and deal with it and feel it and work with it. But just in terms of other people's pain and suffering, it's not mine to take with me. And so
Such,
I'll feel it and I just kind of let it move through me and I just hold that space for them.
yeah.
I understand, even though your story is not my story and nobody's story is exactly the same, I get it, and part of the practice of learning how to be with grief is to learn how to allow yourself to feel those things that we can't run away from it, or we can, but it doesn't always work out very well. And it tends to find you, and all the ways we have that um, push it away, even some healthy things. What if we keep pushing it away? It just becomes too hard. Like if you think about if you're constantly using your energy to push, you know, then you get really tired. And eventually, the healthiest thing, I mean, I can't say you have to because nobody has to do anything, is to allow it to be. And then you experience it's, which I mean, I understand it. It was amazing to me every time, especially very early on when it's really raw and really painful and really big, and I don't have the emotional muscle yet to carry it, that it didn't kill me, but it didn't. And I was like, okay, well, it doesn't kill me. And then you never feel the same intensity forever. Like the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke says, no feeling is final. And it's true. You're going to feel something else. And really, like our feelings kind of will go up and there's a crescendo and there's a peak. And eventually they come down. And when you and I were talking a little earlier about like practical things that we can do to deal with being in these really difficult spaces, the first thing is like letting yourself feel what you're feeling, even when it's scary. Because the more you practice that, then the more you learn how to trust yourself. And that is how you learn to build those muscles. Like you just went to the gym this morning. It's a very good analogy. Like you think about, yeah. Right, let's see again. Let's see.
Yeah. It's big. It's getting bigger.
That.
Anyway, no, it's true. It's a muscle.
If you've never picked up a weight before and you have a 30-pound dumbbell or something and you've never done it, you probably can't curl it. You maybe can pick it up and like drag it around a little bit, but the more you work with it, the more you can pick it up and move it around, and the weight of the thing has not changed.
Yeah.
You change.
Right.
And metaphorically, it's the same thing. You learn that you can carry it. And when you're in that, you start noticing I'm feeling all these things. I'm going to let myself feel it. Then there's a peak, and you can start to feel when it's going down, like when you're in a big crying fit. Eventually, it comes off. It peters out, right? You're just like, And actually that breathing technique, you can mimic that and it helps us. You breathe in.
Sigh.
It helps you to calm down and move through it. And once that starts happening, a really good coping skill is to go do something else. Like distract yourself from it, get busy doing something. Because if we sit there, we can pull it back up and keep going through this cycle. And not that that's always bad. Sometimes maybe we need to do that. But sometimes we need to just say, okay, I've had this big cry and I've been in the middle of this. Now I'm going to go walk the dog, or I'm going to go do a puzzle, or I'm going to go make a cup of tea, or I'm going to go to the park, or take a shower, or whatever, watch a show. I don't know what. Anything that is your good sort of take a break thing. It's a really good skill, but you have to, let yourself, whatever you have to, let yourself feel. And that's the way that you build the muscle. And then let yourself have a break.
Yeah.
I'm not a gym goer, but I do know that you don't go to the gym every day and work on the same muscles every single day. You have to let them rest and recuperate. And it's the same thing emotionally. So you need a break.
This is so important because I think, like, for instance, me, for sure, the reason I got put on a bunch of meds was because I had this severe trauma back to back to back to back, no break, no debriefing, no holding space for me. We swallowed it. We just kept taking it and taking it and taking it. And to me, looking back on it, it was a matter of, I just needed someone to hold space with me while I expressed my suffering. But I also felt incapable of, it was so big. I didn't know how to handle it. Like, it's so overwhelming and so big. You feel like you're losing your mind. You can't sleep. All these things are happening, which happened. I felt it to some extent when my dog just died 2 years ago. It happened all over again. Like, it's so big. And like, what do you do with that? And then you judge yourself because it's like, it's just a dog. So anyway, all that to say, I think we do a disservice because we don't go back to childhood and teach people how to process emotion or how to move through these big emotions. And our loved ones can't sit with us while we're suffering. So of course we're going to run to professionals. Of course we're going to run to the mental health industry. Of course we're going to be medicated because we can't sit with other people's suffering or our own because we don't even learn how.
Right.
So that's one of my big lessons in this whole thing was, okay, now that meds did not work and they actually hurt me, I have to learn how to do this on my own. What am I going to do? So there's a lot of sitting in the bathroom crying. There's a lot of panicking and freaking out and gastrointestinal upset because I just cannot handle the amount of trauma in my body, but so I think the people that are watching this right now, they all have to come to terms with that in their own way. How to process big emotion, even the betrayal of this. So anyway, what do you have to say about that whole topic?
Well, actually, I was gonna ask you a question because, like, you just said that about, so a lot of this sitting in the bathroom crying, panicking, and I do this because I hear so many people all the time talking about, I have a panic attack. I mean, and as if that's something that's like really life-threatening, I mean, we could go back to that, but then you said that, and gastrointestinal upset because your body cannot handle that amount of trauma. But what do you do? So how do you, when that comes up for you, what do you do?
Me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. What do you do?
Honestly, it's like this radical acceptance. Like, there is nothing I can do. I can't go get a pill. I can't go to a doctor. If anything, every time and this is going to be really honest, every time I try to go to a therapist to like process my own medical trauma, or I need something to talk about, I feel gaslit or condescend, because I'm trained as a therapist, so I know all the tricks, excuse me. But so it's like, it doesn't work on me. I'm sorry. I know what you're doing here. And so I'm super defensive sometimes, and I'm a hard client. I know that, because I know what you're thinking. And then I have my own points of view on the whole thing. So I tend to, honestly, every morning and every night, I have big emotion and I think about things that are bothering me, and I will pull it up like an ocean wave and I will cry about it. And like kind of what you said, I just let it move through, but nobody taught me how to do that. It was kind of intuitive. Like, okay, I'm feeling all these things. I'm accepting what they are. I'm seeing my own work in it or not, and just honoring how I feel about a certain topic. And then there's nothing I can do about it except feel it. and then just try to let it go. I even think to some extent, and maybe this is controversial, or maybe I'm just what's the word, like super cynical at this point, but I'm like, there's a whole lot of healing I've done, but there's stuff that's not going to go away. It's there.
Yes.
Your son, you probably feel the same way. And not everything is, I don't want to forget some things that have happened to me. Why would I?
Yes.
So,
well, yeah, I totally agree with you. And I was just yesterday talking with a bereaved parent, and not that it's exclusive to bereaved parents, but you see this a lot with bereaved parents because so much of the trauma is intricately entwined with the love and the experiences. Like, when your child dies, you don't have any more experiences. That's it. And every one of them really is sacred and precious. And you don't want to forget some things, but some things are so painful and hard, right? So it's hard to pull it apart. Like it's almost easier if I'm working with somebody, and this doesn't happen that often, who's had like a discrete traumatic event. They got attacked by a dog, or they were in a car crash, or and nobody died, but it was really scary. Deal with that, and you can move on. You can't do that when it's complex trauma, which is when it's gone on for a long time. And also when it's that like so connected to a person that you love, it's really difficult. And there's lots of things that I'm not going to want to ever forget. It doesn't mean, so I often will say, and I totally 100%, grief does not need to be healed. Grief is a normal and natural emotion and experience. It's not just an emotion, it's a whole experience of many things. And it is part of the human experience and it's sacred and we need it. Trauma can be healed. And when I was actually just not that long ago in a workshop when I was teaching the compassionate bereavement care yoga provider training, right? There was somebody in the room, and she said, well, you've said that a couple of times and it bothers me because I don't feel like my trauma is being healed, and I don't even know if I want it to be. And I said, well, let me actually, that was great to hear. I said, what I mean is really that we can learn how to regulate our nervous system better, that we can manage our nervous system when we have a post-traumatic stress experience. Because it is true, a lot of that stuff is not going to go away. And when I work with people who have extensive trauma, there's no way I can guarantee you're never going to have a post-traumatic stress thing happen to you walking down the street. You never know. So really, you have to be able to understand what's happening. So there's a lot of like psychoeducation around that, like learning what's going on, what is it, and what's happening in your body and your brain and your nervous system, and concrete ways of calming down your body.
I agree
But
with that.
there's plenty of things that are never going to go away.
Right.
And like you said, many of those things, maybe we don't want to. Actually, like I was really surprised. It happens to me very rarely now, but this past summer, I got a colonoscopy, totally clear. I'm good. Don't need another one for 10 more years. But I'm going to tell you, when I was in that prep room, so it's like you do all the stuff you got to do, and there's a lot of people. So there's like curtains around you, but there's several people who are waiting. This is all these people do. It's like colonoscopy, get them in, get them out, lots of people. And a nurse comes in and she's going to prep the IV thing. And because I was dehydrated, she couldn't find a vein. Which I hate that, first of all, but she kept trying and trying and trying. And I just like had, these moments where you have these flashbacks, and it's just, I was all of a sudden like transported to like the day when he got sick, and he was the very first time all these symptoms showed up, and he was in the hospital and they were trying to put an IV in him and they couldn't find a vein. Right now I feel this.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh my God. And I started crying. And she's like, oh, honey, I'm sorry. I'll stop. I'll just let the nurse anesthetist do it in the room. And I was like, it's fine. And I wanted so bad to just like have a huge breakdown and just lose my shit.
Yeah, you
I
can't.
was like, that would have just been so great. I was not expecting it, but that's what I wanted to do. And I couldn't, because I knew if I did that, they'll probably one send me home, but also freak all these people out who I know would be able to hear me. So I just was like, okay, I gotta breathe. I have to like breathe and calm down my body. I have to just chill out. It was so unexpected. It was like,
Where'd that come from?
and
Yeah.
it was so interesting because something like that intense had not happened in a really long time. And it's so weird at this point. I was disappointed that I couldn't like actually be in it and feel it and
Mhm.
let it be what it was. I had to push it away because that was not appropriate, and I did not want to come back and have to do that again. So I was like, wow. And then later I tried to revisit it and think about like process what had happened. And I know what happened. It's still an interesting thing because that was happening to him and not to me. But I remember that and just him crying, and it was so awful. And I was like, wow. And I could not get the moment back. I could remember it, and be like, that was awful and cry a little bit, but nothing like what I was in that moment. And again, like when those things have happened to me in the past, until that my experiences with him, nothing like that had ever occurred. And it was interesting to me the first time that a really major flashback happened, which is different to me from intrusive thoughts. I don't want to say just intrusive thoughts because they're when they flash and flash and flash and you can't think about anything else, it's difficult. But a real true, like you're suddenly transported and you're having like sensory things going on, like seeing and smelling and hearing, it's just amazing. And the first time it happened, I was able to have this sort of like
Meta.
objective viewpoint, this like, oh, this is interesting. This is happening to me. It was really good data for me to like understand what people go through. And if I didn't know what was happening to me, I can totally see how people think they're losing their minds and
Yeah.
have the skills. I already had the skills to be able to like calm myself down and breathe through it and move through those moments. But we don't just come equipped with those. I'm just lucky that I had, before this ever happened to me, I did my yoga teacher training, and I'm a yoga teacher and I practice these breath things all the time and I teach them to other people. So I already had the skill, but these things work. I mean, we're again talking about practical tools. Breathing is your breath is your friend. Not only can it tell you if you're when you're tuned in that you're getting activated, but you can use it to calm yourself down. It's the one autonomic response that we also can control. And when you're breathing and you calm down your body, you're calming down your nervous system, your brain cannot be going into that sympathetic nervous system response. Not just your brain, but all of your body. But we can rarely see it coming. It's just like, so
You're
you
right.
have to be able to practice it in the moment, which means you got to practice it in times when you're not in the middle of a trauma response. So
Yeah.
it's complicated and it's difficult. And yeah, I've known people who would say, no, I don't want any of that. I don't want to deal with any of that. And those are the people who I'm sure if there's a lot of people who might listen to you and listen to me and just say, well, I'd rather just take a pill. But that's a whole nother thing of you don't really know or understand what the consequences of that can be because
Right.
most people are not given truly fully informed consent.
Well, and for me, I feel like the answer that I was given, the pill, was actually cheated me out of the healing process where my body could naturally integrate what happened to me.
You're right about that too.
Yeah.
And that's all of that, not all of it, but so much of that is because we live in this culture that says we're supposed to be happy all the time. And
Not.
everything's supposed to be great. And if it's not, you need to fix it. And I'll tell you, like and I'm not saying that don't go to a therapist, but that's the same reason I didn't go to a therapist after he died, because I had people saying, do you think you should see a therapist? And I was like, I don't know. I am a therapist and I know, but I know the tricks, as you say. And I just thought if somebody tries to talk to me about stages of grief or in any way try to make me move on or criticize how I'm doing this, I will be furious because I was really angry for several years and it will not be good for me or them, maybe, and I was scared because I
I
didn't
think,
have that experience.
yeah, and I think I have so many thoughts to say, but one of them is when you were talking, I was thinking you're a nervous system navigator. Like you're teaching me how to navigate my nervous system. That would be a good use of a professional. Or because I'm kind of like on the edge of like anti-therapy and then pro-therapy at the same time. It's like if you can teach,
Well, doesn't it depend on the therapist?
yeah, like yeah, it depends, but like if you can help me learn my inner world, that's a good thing. But I should be able to do that. I build the muscle and then I should be able to do that or with friends or people that can hold space for me. But that doesn't mean I become dependent on a therapist.
Well,
But at the
no.
same time, I've had experiences where it felt like the therapist is trying to rearrange my deck furniture while I'm trying to arrange it myself. And you're messing this up. Like,
Mm.
can you please just let me follow intuitively what I think I need? If I mess up, fine, I can go back. But there's some process that I'm trying to process through this stuff. And I don't want you messing that up. Kind of what you just said, you
Well,
know?
yeah. I mean, so I do think, I mean, it's all about how the therapist works and how the therapist is trained. And I mean, totally client centered. I don't do anything that you don't want me doing. Like, it's not my body, it's not my brain, it's not my memories. It's all about you and client led. We're not going to, when I get somebody in there, I will say, can you tell me your story? Like, but I'm never going to go like probing into somebody's trauma. I don't do that. Until somebody's ready to share something, they're not gonna. And that being ready means you feel safe. So
Mhm.
my one job, my very first and most important job is to make sure people feel safe to share any of those things with me. And I'm not going to like jump into any kind of furniture rearranging until they're ready to do that. And even when I do things like that, which I do, it's funny because I even use that word, I'll use that phrase. Like after we do some reprocessing stuff, I'll say, hey, we rearranged a lot of stuff, a lot of furniture up here. And in here, maybe, but usually it's in here, your mind and how you remember and process things. And so be aware of just like interesting things can pop up or memories or dreams, or you might want to jot some things down or if something comes to you later, because that can happen. But we don't do any of that until they're ready. And everything that I do with people is completely like you're the one that has all the control. I'm not the one telling you what to do or how to do it or where to put things. And nobody should do that.
Yeah, and I think about like things with like CBT are harmful in some ways because I don't want to think about my trauma in another way. This is how my body interpreted it. This is what my belief system built around that. But I don't know. You can't tell someone in the inner city who's like struggling to survive, living in poverty, like, oh, you need to think about the things you're grateful for. No, I'm living in a shithole. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I have so many mixed feelings about therapy, and that's one of
Well,
the reasons
no,
I didn't
because
do therapy.
when people do stuff like that, Angie,
Ugh.
and I think I'm not saying they don't mean well and they get told these things or they get trained these ways or whatever, but a lot of the time it's because they are uncomfortable with your pain. And we're all like, why do you get into this field in the first place? What is the answer? Want to help people. And I can't help you sometimes when you're there. I just need to be there with you. And I will go all the way down there with you. I totally will. But other people they're uncomfortable. It is scary. And then, so they're trying to like, oh, well, let's think about the positive things, or let's think about the things you're grateful for. Let's shift it away from this pain instead of let's be here now. I mean, it's part of it's a cultural problem.
Yeah, we read the book The Gift of Therapy by Irving Yalom during my graduate program, and we had this huge discussion in my clinical perspectives class because there's a whole chapter where he says you cannot take a client unless you have been deep there yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a huge controversy in the field because for veterans, like with PTSD, they'll tell us, hey, your therapist has not been to war, but they understand what fear is, or they understand what grief is, and blah, blah, blah. And veterans are like, I'm not telling you my stuff because you don't get it, because you don't even have a frame of reference for
Yeah.
living in a third world country, washing your underpants in a pot of water and taking a shower like out of a can for 4 months. Like you don't even understand what that's like, or 130-degree heat. You've never been above 100. So how would you know? So we try, like we're trying to take ourselves there, like, okay, this is the only help I can get, let me do it. But even people that I see, it's made me change my mind about that a little bit, because no, the people that I talk to that I'm coaching, they don't want to talk to a mental health professional who still believes in the system. They want someone who has been through this process, who knows how bad withdrawal is, and who has gotten to the other side and gotten their life back. That's who they want to talk to. They don't want to talk to somebody who tells people to go to psychiatry. Like they just, it doesn't work, you know? So I don't know. So with you, you went through traumatic grief, you felt it, you have that frame of reference. Obviously, one of your clients who's had their grandmother die, it's not the same, but it's in the same ballpark. You know what I mean? I don't
Well,
know.
it depends. I mean, like, what I was said earlier, Joanne, she tells this story, which is really a helpful illustration. She was working with two different bereaved mothers. So they came because they had this child loss. And during each of their course of like working with her, both of them had grandmothers that died. Now, one of the grandmothers was, it was a peaceful death. Everybody was around her. The pain was well controlled. It was sad. It's sad. I mean, especially if you're close to your grandmother, sad. The other grandmother wasn't ill, wasn't sick. Somebody broke into her house, robbed her, murdered her, and then left. And that is trauma. Two totally different grandmother deaths, you know, and there's a huge difference. So, not just grief, but grief when things are not traumatic is a whole different thing than when things are very traumatic.
Yeah.
They're different.
I'm sorry about the drilling in the back behind. Oh my gosh, it's so loud. Can you hear
Oh, that's
that?
fun. I can hear it barely, but it doesn't sound that crazy loud to me.
Okay. So if
It's
PTSD,
good.
if PTSD is not a disorder, then what is it? Let's talk about
Well, I don't ever include the D. When I'm talking about it, I don't include the D because I don't think it's a disorder. I think it is a normal and a natural response to a really messed up thing that's happened to you. I mean, if you go through all the things that you've been through and you don't have some kind of response to that, that's weird.
something's wrong with you.
I think that's a disorder.
That's true. But I mean, Karla, this is such an important topic because I just gave a speech on Friday to a room full of 200 veterans. And I was so anxious because I was like, first of all, this is my own community in my own hometown. I know these people. Second of all, you can't bullshit a group of veterans. You cannot, especially ones that have been through combat. Okay. So it's like the pressure was on. And when I was talking about PTS in particular, I was saying that, like, think about this, guys, like critically think about this. You are the highest trained, most skilled, most competent, most physically fit, mentally strong people on the planet. And you went through this traumatic experience. And then you get on an airplane, you fly back to the United States, and all of a sudden you're mentally ill. Like, does that make sense? Like, think about that for 1 second, you know? But when I hear what you just said, and maybe I'm still working through this and trying to come up with the language to explain it, when I come back to my hometown, I don't fit the way I fit before. That doesn't mean I'm disordered. That means my body went through a trauma. I can't quite fit where I used to fit. I have to rearrange my life even now. 20 years after my major traumas, 8 years after coming off meds, my life is rearranged in a certain way that I can function and I can thrive. And maybe I don't do skydiving anymore or bungee jumping. No, thank you. But I do things like that I enjoy, and I don't appear normal. I would think I can't work a 9 to 5 job. I can't ignore the things that happen to me. I do have an intensity about me. I do have trouble interpersonally. That's just what the trauma imprint left on me. It does not mean I'm disordered, but there's something there. I want to say really quick. There's something there about I can't quite fit back in. Like like from a capitalist perspective. Oh, so if you can't work and be normal, then there's something wrong with you.
That's a really good point.
Something there. It's not that this is a normal response, but it's the way that I'm fitting back in that creates the disorder. So psychiatry would say, well, we need to adapt you in a way that makes you fit back in. And I don't think that's possible.
Well, I don't think it's right either.
Yeah.
It's not correct and it's not right. You know, it's not morally the right way. And you're right, like the capitalist perspective. You're right. Oh, you can't go to work, you can't be normal, like whatever that means. But I mean, and I have not. You're right. I have not been through all of those things that you've
Even
been.
that, it doesn't even matter. Even from your perspective, like
Right.
losing a child, or the people that you work with, they need time off work. They need time
Oh,
to,
totally.
maybe they don't ever work with children again, or they don't ever work in a nurse, something.
Yes.
Life has to change in some kind of way. So don't use my combat perspective as the
No,
thing.
but no, but I was going to say though, you're right. I haven't, but I mean, I can listen to you and hear your story and have a lot of empathy. Like I can imagine it. I mean, this is maybe an aside. I can't stand it when people say, "Oh, I just can't imagine." Yes, you can. You
Just
don't
try.
want to,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to. Human beings can imagine anything. Like we've imagined galaxies far, far away. There's people who can speak the entire Klingon language. We can imagine all kinds of things. We don't, when people say that, it means they don't want to. And I've heard like pushback on that, but it's just true. So I can imagine everything you've described, but I will tell you, I understand what you're saying because I've said this before and it's still true. I only feel 100% completely that I can be totally myself around another person who's lost a child because actually you might be an exception. I can see now that there are exceptions, but it's like if I'm in a room when we do these retreats full of bereaved parents, everybody is at ease. Like they don't have a problem like laughing. Whereas if you do that somewhere else, people think, oh, they're over it. Or you worry that they think you're over it. Or you think that they think you don't miss your child or love them anymore, or whatever. I mean, it's this fear of judgment. Or that if you talk about your kid or you bring up any aspect of it, even when it's appropriate to the conversation, suddenly everything is different. It's changed because, oh, you're talking about this dead child or whatever. And it's just like, sometimes you just get tired of being that person. But when you're with the same people who've been through it, they're fine with it. Like it's not weird. So I don't fit back in. And honestly, if you look at what I've done, this is not normal. I've done this because I already had a certain skill set that translated well, but I've also learned a whole lot of other things. But most people, when their child dies, do not have this life where literally my whole life revolves around this now. And I'm fine with that. It
Too.
works, right? It works for me. And I guess it works for the system in a lot of ways. But for people who don't necessarily or can't necessarily find a way to make the ways that they've been irrevocably changed now fit back into society, it can be really difficult. And even though I fit in, I have a job, I contribute, I'm still really weird. Like people think I'm strange. Like, I mean, there's a shirt, whatever kills you. I don't like that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't believe that. But I did see a shirt that said whatever doesn't kill you just makes you weird at parties. And that's true.
I like the one that says I'm mentally hilarious. It's like I have this dark sense of humor, or I think of things weird, and it's like that's just how I am now. Can't help it. You got to be, Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
but you're
Okay,
right.
we're running out of time very quickly, but I'm just trying to think of what can we hit quickly. I think some main points to hit home is grief is not a disorder. There's no
Mhm.
time limit or weeks that you need to be over it.
No.
That
Now
whole
you will, or you're gonna feel pressure. I mean, and that's the hard part. I mean, we can say that, and I do say those things. It doesn't keep the rest of the world from pressuring you. And so when you're talking about having the skill to be in pain and be with your pain and work through it, it's also a skill for other people to be able to learn that. And people can learn it. It's a matter of learning how to be uncomfortable and learning how to be okay in your discomfort. That's an internal job. I mean, trying to just like change a subject or throw some platitude, all that stuff has to do with you feeling uncomfortable. And that's a skill to learn how to be in discomfort. People can learn it. It's a teachable skill. If the grieving people and traumatized people can learn how to be in their own pain, so can everybody else that has to be watching it. So that's a thing that can be learned, whether people want to learn it or not,
It's true.
or
And
have
I think
fortitude or
that's a very present issue in our community because people lose friends, they lose family members, they don't have support that is meaningful. Let me think of a way to say this nicely. I have people that their parents or their loved one is well-meaning and they're really trying to support them, but they get so uncomfortable with the other person suffering through withdrawal. It's like, I want to put my loved one in a hospital, or they need to stop this, or they need to go to detox. And I'm like, it's almost opposite. Like, we need to work on your ability to watch this.
That's right. Yes.
She is, or he is going to suffer the way they're suffering. And we have to work on you calming your anxiety down about panicking and
Exactly.
sending them to someone that could do them more harm. But also a skill that I've had to learn as a coach is, and it came up 2 days ago, someone lost their husband, and I'm supporting that person through their grief process just because I went through the same thing their husband did. So you know, you were like, uh-oh, this is going to be hard. Like, I can feel it in my own body. This is going to be hard. And here we go. And I think that's the part that our loved ones, or why therapists can be good, because we are practiced at that. We are skilled at that. We do, most of us, or some of us can be our own inner work to be aware of how we're feeling and what we're bringing to a conversation. And our loved ones necessarily aren't able to do that. Or people in my community who are healing themselves, they can't handle supporting someone else. And I always tell my clients, like, look, you're not a coach. That's what I do. That's what I get paid for. That's what I'm trained to do. I have skills inside that I work on myself all the time when things are hard, or when someone says something that hurts me, I will say it back to them. You maybe can't do that. But I do think that's just so good. Like, loved ones that are watching, please be aware of your own feelings that you're bringing and how you're processing your own uncomfortability. That's what it is. I can feel it, like, uh-oh. And then how do I?
And the judgment that is coming from social expectations. I mean, it's, even, I know we don't have a lot of time, but like this new prolonged grief disorder, that this is a new thing. Like, the criteria, Angie, for this thing is one of the major things is that the person continues to yearn for the deceased. I'm going to tell you right now, 20 years, that is the major thing that is still present. I feel it right now, right here. I can feel it. It's never going away. And then I can't remember the exact wording. If we had time, I'd find it, because it's fast. It's just infuriating and fascinating. And it says every single thing in the criteria is completely subjective. There's nothing that is operationally defined whatsoever. And the big part of it is, it says that the person is not functioning. They're not doing all these things according to the social mores and expectations of society, religion, or their family.
Stop yearning.
Like, it's all about what other people think you should be doing, despite the fact that clear research shows that people, and this is on bereaved parents, which are arguably probably the most intractably grieving people, that years out, they are still, we'll just say 5 years in, they are totally still experiencing even physical responses to their grief. It's still there. And they report ongoing emotional issues with their grief 5-10 years later. Huge groups of people. If huge groups of people are experiencing the same thing, it is not pathology. It is normal. Nobody says that it's pleasant or that we like it. No, and disruptive, certainly, but it's not pathology. You're not disordered. And they're trying to treat prolonged grief disorder with drugs. Which they want to use naltrexone for it.
No.
It's messed up. And so you're right. Like, it's a societal problem. And
but also, is the disorder placed on the wrong group of people? It's that you all can't handle us grieving for long.
Well, right. And the same thing with you. Like, it's you're the one, you can't, because we can't handle it. There must be something wrong with you. And then, then you have like victim shaming and victim blaming.
Yeah.
You're the one with the problem because we don't want to see that. There must be something wrong with you. And what's really messed up too is that unless you know, or you're able to say, no, that is not my truth, you start internalizing that and thinking there must be something wrong with me. Until you find somebody or someplace that can help you regain, like, get that emotional muscle and have that strong ability to stand up and say, no, that isn't true for me. I'm incredibly functional person. You're not ever going to take my grief away from me. Or, when those moments show up, and I'm sure it will happen again, where I'm plunged back into a traumatic moment that I went through, eventually it's going to happen to me again. How can it not? It lives here in me. That's just the way it is. I've learned how to handle it. I don't have a disorder, and I'm able to stand up and say, no, whatever you're saying about that is not true for me and not true in my grief. It's not true for me in my trauma, not true in my life. And I reject that. Because it's all subjective. Like, as well as I know, everything in the DSM, nothing is researched. It's all subjective.
Yeah. It's my judgment. What that means, guys, is it's my judgment whether you have a disorder or not. And I can tell you, I think the replication of a diagnosis between practitioners. So if Karla sees you and then I see you, or another therapist, or, I'm not a therapist, a coach, but the people that diagnose you, they can all have their own opinions on what's wrong with you. One will say it's borderline, one will say it's PTSD, one will say it's prolonged.
That's right. And the book that they're using now, the DSM-5, now TR, that holds this prolonged grief disorder, it's the worst inter-rater reliability of any of the previous books. It's very low.
Which means you cannot get this, you probably won't get the same diagnosis across 5 different practitioners.
Yeah, exactly. So,
okay.
And there's research. You can critically look into this, and the way that the books have been created, literally people sit around a table and decide what they want it to say. Like, there's no research. And I've been criticized for saying that. But it's a fact. Like, there is no research that backs one diagnosis.
There's no citations in the back of the DSM.
No, there's not. And then not only that, but in this new version, which is the 5th one now, they squarely, because they want it to be biologically rooted, they even say that we're not considering emotional, socio-emotional, familial, nothing environmental. It's all rooted in biology. And that cannot be true. Like, how can you have trauma if it has nothing to do with your environment or what has happened to you?
Well, in the same breath, I could talk about this for an hour, but in the same breath, they will say the social determinants of mental health. Okay, so which one is it? Or why do you mention it all the time? No, only when it's okay. Anyway,
it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And this is so hopefully when people, are searching for a provider, like not all, this is how I work, and I know I don't always fit in with like every therapist. And I'm telling you, I've gotten a lot of criticism, sometimes nicely, sometimes not nicely, but there's no research, or there is research to back up everything that I say. Like when we're talking about the groups of people who still have grief years and years and years and years out, which contradicts what this newly made up diagnosis says. And it is a fact that there's no research in the DSM. And I understand, like, people think, oh, we need a common way to speak about this. I don't even know if we do. Like, I have so many people that come and they're so attached to their labels. Like my anxiety. Okay, what if we used another word for that? Or my personality disorder? Well, what if nobody had ever told you had a personality disorder? How would you feel about yourself? And I really try to get people away from anxiety, because it's fear. It's fear. That's all it is. Not all it is. It's no small thing, but it's fear. We don't need to have everything be some clinical thing. It's fear, and that's a human experience. And so what do we do with that?
Yep. Okay, 2 quick questions. The first one, this is kind of hard, and then we got to go because my battery's dying very quickly here. And I have a client right after this, but 2 quickly. One is the thing that's present with a lot of my clients is all the years they lost because of being in the mental health system, and because of all the years that they could not feel their emotion, or they were numb, or they weren't quite themselves, or they couldn't reach their potential. And I've had that in my own, 20 years that I lost, and the grief of that. And what I tell people is, like, there's a little sting. I'm not going to lie about it. There's a little sting in the background. I don't let it's not present. I did process these emotions. I went through it in my own way. And I try to live a really good life now, because I am not going to waste one more second because they took 20 from me, But can you give any practical suggestions for how do we move through or process or be with the amount of years that we lost, the trauma that we've gotten from the mental health industry?
Well, I think, like, you kind of answered it in everything you just said. I don't think there's any way to like make it better. Like it can't be fixed. And so when you have those kinds of feelings and losses around that and the sadness and the regret or the anger and all of those things, those are emotions. And we all emotions need to find some way of expression. I mean, so can we write about it? Can you paint about it? Can you move your body in a way that expresses how you're feeling? Can you talk about it with somebody? Finding a way to express how you're feeling. And I'm a huge, we didn't even talk about like art making or anything like that, but that's something I did in the beginning. I mean, I still do, but I just knew I was like, I got to find a way to express. I was doing pottery classes. I did metal sculpture. I started painting more, drawing more, refinishing furniture, baking. I didn't do a lot of baking, but there's so many ways you can be creative. Planting a garden, doing anything that's creative helps you to find ways of moving emotion. And like, there's no cure for any of those things. There's no cure for death, no cure for grief, and there doesn't need to be a cure for grief. But when you have this sense of destruction in your life, creation is the antidote to that. When you are creating something, and when you do that, even if you're not planning on it, somehow aspects of what you're feeling and processing come through and into that thing that you're making in some way. It's always different, but even if you're not trying, like I've worked with artists and everybody's an artist, but I'm not like professionally trained or anything like that. I don't sell my work really, but I have worked with professional artists and they like art prompts and stuff. And even when they think that they know what they're creating, you bring it and you look at it, you see all these surprising things of like, oh, I didn't mean for that to be in there. So much stuff that comes out. And I do a lot of like painting and art making with people, especially when we do retreats because we have more time and space. And even people who will say, I'm not creative, which is not true. Everybody's creative. But the stuff that they create and that comes through, and then when they talk about the process of what that was like and how they were feeling, there's so much stuff that can come out of that. So, I mean, I think because there's no fix for it, how do you express what it's like to have had those things happen and to have had those things taken from you? And how do you find a way of working with that now and carrying it forward in your life? Like I mean, and like I said, not everybody's going to do what you're doing or do what I'm doing, but in ways that we can make a difference now, like finding meaning. And this is another thing. Nobody else can tell you how to do that. How do you create meaning from what has happened? And that is so different for each person.
That you plant a tree in your yard and you throw all this pain and grief in there and you walk away from it and you never think about it again. That could be it. I don't know.
Maybe,
Everybody's got their own thing, and I don't
yeah,
think there's like a cookie cutter approach for
no,
everyone.
there's not.
You have to find that within yourself. I always tell people, like, I don't want to, there's gifts in this, there's meaning in this. I don't like the way that you had to get it. It's horrible. It should have never happened to you. But I'm telling you, there is things in there, but you're not going to figure that out until you're ready, and don't let anybody
Right.
push you in that direction.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And again, with research shows that when people feel that somebody's trying to push them to find the meaning, it doesn't work. People find that really insulting.
Even if there is no meaning and you are just like, there was no meaning, that should not have happened. That's okay.
Oh no, there's no meaning. There's not meaning in my child's death.
Oh,
What I have done is made to figure out, how does my life now have meaning after having gone through that? No, it's not like all this good stuff that's come from his. No, that's insulting to me and to his life, right? But it was my decision to think, what am I going to do? And for me, the motive is, I would like to live a life that he would be proud of. So what does that look like? And how can I? And I didn't want to help people in the beginning. That was not my goal. But as I've done more things, it's like doing it for him. And now it's not so much about him, it's about other people. And that's different, right? I mean, but I still, want to think he would be proud of what I'm doing. And for me, that's the meaning for me. It's not the meaning for everybody else. It's different. And you have to find it for yourself. And a guide, a therapist who's well trained and isn't going to try to push you, can help you figure out what that looks like for you.
Or you can
or,
do,
people who are truly compassionate and empathetic and non-judgmental supports for you can help you just by being present.
that's it. It's reminding me of a story, and then we'll go to the very, very last comment, which should only take 1 minute. But I went to a museum on the East Coast. I think it was Baltimore or somewhere in Virginia. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But there was a woman from the Holocaust who had what's the word? Like knitted these big panels of all the scenes that she had from memory. So one was her parents being taken away to the gulag, and she had done it, and her daughter was on film. There was a video playing, and I watched the video for a second, and it said, my mom sat there, and every thread she was processing her trauma.
Mm.
She made these beautiful panels, and that's how she worked through it. And that's always stuck with me, like, wow, the time that it took to just sit there with her pain. Amazing.
Well, another thing, just like body and nervous system related, when you do something using both of your hands, it helps integrate what's going on in both hemispheres of the brain and helps you process your trauma. I mean, so when you're doing things that involve that physicality and you're processing your trauma, it helps the process move along. So knitting for sure, right? I mean, I'm gonna have to look that up and find it because
I
that's
couldn't find it. I couldn't believe it watching that. Okay, so this is the other thing. I usually end on hope. However, this has been a very heavy conversation. So I'm not sure how to transition into that. So I guess my question would be on how to end, like what, I don't know, like healing, hope, like how, when something really bad happens to us, when this trauma that life inevitably brings us in some form or another or multiple times, um, I don't know, what do you have to say about that? Like healing or hope or
well, I mean, you say that this has been a really heavy conversation, and I guess it has, but also at the same time, like there's been a lot, I think, of hopefulness just even in what we've talked about. And also, if you go back and watch this again, there's been times where there's been obvious like pain that you're expressing, and me too. And then there's times where we've laughed about things. I mean, I think that's the hopefulness. Like it is, we don't want people to go through trauma, but you're right. Lots of people go through trauma. The world that we live in, I mean, just right now, everything that's happening right now, all the people who are dying all over and in Gaza and with this war that's so horrible right now. And for the Jewish people that have been harmed and the people who are, losing people that they love, we can't say, oh, well, it's going to be fine. People are going to go through trauma. But we don't want to just like erase those things either. Like you said, it's part of life. And so within that painful part of life, having these moments where you can genuinely share how you feel and not feel judged and have safe spaces, that's hopeful. And well, I remember like when my son died, this was in 2006. There were very few spaces where I could have that. And I'm really fortunate that there was already a Myth Foundation chapter here. A lot of people think that I started the one in Richmond, but I didn't. It was already here. And I'm so fortunate for that, but also the online space. But there was almost nothing else. And now, like, there's so much more, even though nothing's perfect, there's so much more opportunity. Like, the spaces that Medicating Normal, the film, has created, there's a lot of other places where people can go. I think you need to be discerning because not all the spaces are always safe. And so learning how to feel, okay, this is the place for me, this is not the place for me is important. But that to me is really hopeful. There are a lot more resources now than there were even 20 years ago. I mean, 20 years, and I think about that, it's kind of nuts. Like I remember in the beginning, not even being able to conceive of getting through like next week, and then it was early on, first year, second year, somebody that was in a group with me was talking about the 10-year anniversary. And I was like, oh my God, 10 years? I have to be doing, I mean, I could not conceive of it in that moment, but years keep going by. But there's so much more available to support people and spaces where people can have these conversations. And to me, that's really hopeful. And
yeah.
you can find places where you can express that stuff and there's so much more like somatic work being done that was not happening, early on in yoga for grief. When I wrote my book, Yoga for Grief and Loss, there were like two other ones and they weren't that good. Now there's not that you need a bunch of books, but there's so many more people who I feel really gratified. I know that they've read my book, who are teaching yoga for grief and loss. And there's so much more available for people to be able to go and process and feel in these non-judgmental supportive spaces. It's not perfect, but to me, like that's helpful. Anybody watching this who's found you, that's a resource, and you have other resources. And now they can look at me and find resources. There's so many more places.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's getting better.
And I think my takeaway from this conversation, and I guess I never put it in these words before, but that your grief, your trauma, your healing process, or not healing process, because you don't have to heal grief. And some of your trauma is not, I guess just being a human, it's sacred. Like, don't cheapen your pain, I guess, by letting someone rearrange the decks of it. You know what I mean? The furniture. Yeah. Like totally. It's a sacred thing, and you should earn the right to hear my story. And I need to process it my own way, and I need to be around people that honor that.
That's right.
That's what I think.
It is sacred. Grief and pain and anything you've been through that changes you, it's sacred. And not everybody has the right to hear your story. No. Doesn't matter how many letters they have behind their name. Well, yeah. It's definitely a sacred.
Keep talking. I feel like I didn't even get to talk.
I mean, I could talk to you all day.
Part 2. We need a part 2 with this one. Well, thank you so much. I will let you get back to your work. I have people waiting on me, so I'm going to get back to
Angie.
Thank you, Karla. And tell people where they can find you.
Okay. Well, you can find me online. It's just my name, karlahelbert.com. And if you go to the website, any contact form comes straight to my email. Oh, also, I will say this. So coming up on December 5th, we've got a free webinar with a friend of mine, Ann Moth Rogers, who's also a bereaved parent and is mental health suicide prevention expert. And we're doing a free webinar for bereaved parents on December 5th from 5:30 to 7. And it's actually very helpful for anybody who would want to understand that kind of really complicated grief. Totally free. I think it'll be helpful.
I'll share it on our page.
Come. Yeah, because I think it'll be really good. It's free, but you do need to register. So
not pathologizing, right?
No, exactly. It's me. Come on, Angie.
I know. I'm just making a point before we hang up. Okay, cool. Thank you, Karla. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you in a couple weeks. I am taking my first ever vacation in my whole life, where I'm not going to time. So I will be gone for about 10 days, but I will be back with more interviews toward the end of the year. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Karla. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for helping us in a sacred way. Thank you, Angie. Oh, and tomorrow's Veterans Day. So thank you. Thank you for your service. You're welcome. I don't know. I never know how to answer that. I know you don't, but thank you for the sentence. I felt it. I did it. Thank you so much. Okay, bye, everybody. Have a great